in South Africa. Now, Prof, a very warm good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, just take us through some of the resolutions, of course, that came out from this debate that's been heated since last year. Professor Ndlovu, if you can hear me, welcome to AM News.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, we understand that, of course, this, debate around student protest action has been going on since last year. But what are some of the resolutions that came out, of these protests?
Thank you for that. There are a number of issues which have come out of the protest. I think what comes out clearly out of the student protest movement can be categorized in the following ways. The first one, which we need to talk about, which actually sparked the whole Rhodes Must Fall movement, is first of all the removal of the Rhodes statue at the University of Cape Town. And that we will actually summarize it as the decolonization of the space, particularly dealing with the offensive colonial and apartheid monuments and the statues. The second one, which comes out also clearly, if one distills from the voices of the students, is what I will call cognitive justice, whereby the students have put it at the center of the discourse, the fact that all human beings actually come from a knowledge system, and we cannot continue to be fed with one knowledge system from somewhere. We need knowledges which actually are contextual and relevant. The third one, which also comes out clearly from the students' movement, is what I will call depatriarchization, which actually speaks to the issues of sexual harassment and sexism within institutions of higher learning. And the fourth one, which also comes out, is that of institutional cultural change, which is generally seen by students as still white and Eurocentric and alienating to them. And these, to me, and then the other important one, which is encapsulated by the hashtag Fees Must Fall, is actually the right to education, the right to quality, relevant, and free education. I think those are the issues which I imagine clearly.
And Professor, in your opinion, do you think that free education in South Africa and perhaps even the African continent is realistic at this stage?
When you are actually speaking about struggles, the question of whether something is realistic or not becomes actually disempowering. I think it's possible that we need to rethink the financing of higher education on the continent. It is not actually a waste to actually invest in the youth who are actually the future of the continent. And I think taking it from that perspective rather than from a neoliberal issues of market-related thinking, it is possible to actually have free education.
And let's talk about, of course, the hard work that needs to be put in place for this transformation to take place. Where do we begin? How do we come about implementing transformation within, higher education in South Africa?
If we are really building on what the students have said themselves, they are saying they've actually moved beyond the transformation. What they need is actually decolonization of the universities. And according to their voices, the decolonization of the university is deeper than the issues of transformation, and the transformation and the Africanization, which generally were actually focused on putting in place black vice chancellors, employing more black people, and systematically introducing one or two African thinkers. The students are now really talking about a deeper change, which they think the best term which encapsulates it is that of decolonization. And this one goes deeper to the issues of not asking for inclusion into the already existing Western universities. We are actually talking here about the issue of challenging, subverting, and totally changing the idea of the university as it has been existing since the last 500 years.
But we've also seen, numerous universities. I can make mention of, one in Oxford University, whereby students were calling for statues to be removed, as well as, donors threatening to remove donations and funding from universities. However, universities were still stubborn in saying that they cannot remove those statues. They're still symbolic, of course, in the university's history.
It is important that we must understand when we are talking about roads, who are we talking about? We are talking about a symbol of enslavement, a symbol of dispossession, a symbol of colonialism, a symbol of apartheid, a symbol of racism. And to me, it would be surprising that there is any civilization or any culture which will claim such a person as though it must be preserved because it is part of their culture. So I'm thinking that all cultures really need to reject the symbol and the spirit of roads. I can see that what kicked in at the University of Oxford is very clear that once we are threatened with the withdrawal of funding, then everything indicates that the universities are actually hostage to the markets and those who actually give us money. But it is not about money per se. It is about shifting the geography of knowledge, about shifting the biography of knowledge, and about removing and moving, actually engaging in a paradigm shift from colonialism to a new dispensation, which Fanon spoke about as the invention of a new humanity. And I'm surprised that the University of Oxford can actually use the issue of funding, because that has been used many times to justify the maintenance of the status quo of coloniality.
And Professor, before I let you go, I understand that you also chaired a debate at the 2016 Unisa Summer School, of course, unpacking the topic of decolonising the university and student movements in South Africa. What was the significance of, the Unisa's 2016 Summer School, and what are some of the themes that came out of it?
Unisa Summer School actually is the one which we had this year, is actually the third in a series of the other two which took place in the previous years. It is taking place at a unique university, which is the University of South Africa. University of South Africa has actually declared in its mission that it wants to be an African university in the service of humanity and shaping futures. It is the only university which is trying to move beyond the rhetoric of being an African university to be really an African university. This meaning that the university is taking its context very serious, particularly the context of its existence here in South Africa, the context of its existence within the continent, and the context of its existing within the broader global community. But what it is doing at the moment, which actually enabled us to even launch such a movement as the Decolonial Summer School, is that there is an enabling space at Unisa whereby there is that preparedness to actually challenge the existing curriculum, which is remaining Eurocentric, the existing institutional cultures, which are remaining white, the existing systems of governance of the university, which are not enabling but disabling initiatives and those who actually want to break with coloniality. So the importance of the summer school is that it becomes a medium through which we reproduce critical thinkers, through which we reignite the spirit of black consciousness, through which we actually make people see coloniality in its bare form. And as such, we then create a social base for change agents within South Africa, within the continent, and globally.
All right, Professor Sabelo, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing, of course, what came out of the Unisa's 2016 summer school sessions. Of course, Professor Sabelo is a professor with the University of South Africa, and I understand that he chaired the 2016 Unisa Summer School, unpacking the topic of decolonising the university and student movements in South Africa.